Hey guys, how's it going? So today we're going to be comparing the N64 to the GameCube. And just like last time, we're not necessarily comparing them to see which is the best, but we're just comparing them in general. The N64 and the GameCube, again, may not have a lot in common, but there's a lot of points I want to bring up in this video. Although I do have to be honest about something. There's a slight bit of bias towards the GameCube since I grew up with it. It was one of my first gaming systems, so there's a little bit of bias there, but again, we're not comparing them to see which is the best. We're just comparing them in general. Either way, enough of this introduction bullshit. Well, let's get started with the Nintendo 64.
Yo, listen up. We will not live in a two-dimensional world.
We won't go in one direction
or zig where we can zag. We will walk through walls. We will take a look around us.
We will not be confined.
We believe in the path of least limits.
We won't be told how to view the world.
We will experience true freedom.
We will not compromise. We will live the game through our hands.
We will be in control of something.
We will change the system.
Alright, so as most of us know, the N64 released in 1996 to mass appeal. Hell, some retailers even broke the street date. And of course, this was Nintendo's first 3D system. Nintendo had been working on the N64 since 1994, and I didn't mean for that to rhyme. At first, it was called the Ultra 64, then the Nintendo 64, since Konami owned the trademark of Ultra back in the 90s. Now, when the N64 first released, it obviously had to deal with some competition. It had to go against the PS1, which released in 1995, and the Sega Saturn, which released in 1994. So when the N64 released, it obviously had a lot to stand up to. And one thing that definitely held back the N64 was it having cartridges instead of discs. So back in the 90s, CDs, discs were becoming a new thing, and discs were easier to work on instead of cartridges. They were cheaper and easier to produce instead of cartridges. And as you can see by Nintendo 64 having cartridges instead of CDs, the games are a lot more expensive. And third-party games are sort of lackluster for the N64. If we were to compare a PS1 game to an N64 game, obviously the PS1 game is going to look a lot better. And let's not also forget back then, Nintendo also censored some things. Let's just say Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, for example. That was a huge game that released in 1999. On the PS1, it showed full music videos from the artists that are in the game, but the N64 obviously couldn't handle that, so it just showed the development team logo. Or in the PS1 version, when you fall down from a skate trick, it shows blood. When it comes to the N64, it doesn't. Because needless censorship, I guess. I don't know why, but the N64 has Resident Evil, but it can't handle a little bit of blood from a skateboarding game. But as you can tell, there are a lot of things holding the N64 back. As you can see, the PlayStation 1 absolutely demolished the N64 when it came to sales. And yet, even though the N64 was held back by a lot, it still had tons of great games. When there's no third-party support, Nintendo stepped in big time with a bunch of brand new games from their main franchises. Well, except for Metroid. And one more thing I'd like to mention is Squaresoft. That was a big third-party company that worked for the Super Nintendo. I mean, they made tons of great games. Chrono Trigger, Secret of Mana, Mario RPG, of course the Final Fantasy games that are released for the Super Nintendo. They made a lot of games for the Super Nintendo. Well, unfortunately, when it came to the 5th generation, they moved on to the PlayStation 1. Because like I said before, Sony makes discs, it's better hardware, they don't have to work with cartridges. I mean, hell, I don't think they could even port Final Fantasy 7 to the N64 if they even wanted to. I mean, hell, it'll take like 5 cartridges to even run Final Fantasy 7. I'm just guessing. But of course, one other company that worked with Nintendo that I have to mention is Rare. I mean, how could I even talk about the N64 without bringing up Banjo-Kazooie, Conker's Bad Fur Day, Diddy Kong Racing, Jet Force Gemini, Perfect Dark? These are all Rare games. And of course, with the N64 being held back, I would say that the two main companies that made the N64, well, at least made it what it is today, is Nintendo and Rare. Those two companies made the system, or else, what would you have? Nintendo games and shitty third-party ports. However, since we're talking about games and third-party and second-party companies for the N64, let's talk about the games. The two main launch titles for the N64, well, at least in America, was Mario 64 and Pilot Wing 64. When I think of the N64, I think of Super Mario 64. Now, this game was revolutionary. Again, the N64 was held back by a lot, but this game was great. Graphically, it may not hold up today, but it's great when it comes to gameplay. However, I would not recommend playing it with the N64 controller. I would recommend some of the third-party ports that are out there, such as the Brawler 64 controller or the HoriPad N64 controller. And I mean, again, let's not forget, this is Nintendo's first 3D system, so obviously there was going to be a lot of mistakes. Of course, they make a controller that's made for a three-handed person. But enough about the N64, let's move on to its predecessor, the GameCube.
Nintendo GameCube.
So as you can see by the commercial, Nintendo was trying to be a bit more, I guess, edgy with the GameCube. Now, one thing I could immediately tell about the GameCube is that it's completely different to the N64. This isn't really Nintendo's first time with 3D. They made a great controller to go with it. They again had tons of great games for it. The GameCube is overall a perfectly good system. Unfortunately, though, they lost Rare. The one point I mainly want to bring up about the GameCube is the games. You see, when it came to the N64, this was Nintendo's first time with 3D. So the games were a bit more blockier, things weren't quite there yet when it came to 3D. However, I feel like when it came to the GameCube, the games were a lot more different. I mean, let's just compare the titles. Mario Kart 64, it's your basic Mario Kart just in 3D. However, Mario Kart Double Dash, you have a lot more variety when it comes to tracks. You race with 2 people, so double items. Mario 64, it's your basic Mario game just in 3D. However, Mario Sunshine, you get this item called Flood, and you get to run around in actual open worlds. And of course, travel throughout levels similar to Mario 64, but in better graphics, I guess. So as you can see, the games for the N64 and the GameCube are a bit different. And to be honest, the GameCube really feels like it's meant for like hardcore gamers, I guess. And I know that's cringy to say, but you know, at the time it just kind of felt that way, I guess. But you know, like comparing the N64 to its competition, obviously it seems a lot weaker. It seems like a bit more blockier. The PlayStation 1 to the N64, there's obviously going to be a bit of a difference. But comparing the GameCube to the original Xbox, there is a bit of a difference, but it's not as drastic as the N64 compared to the PS1. And let's not also forget that Nintendo also released a lot more edgier games for the GameCube, like Geist, Eternal Darkness, games like that. Games that seem like they have a more darker tone, I guess. But I'd say overall, though, comparing the N64 to the GameCube side by side, they both seem like great systems. It's all about what you prefer, I guess. You know, if you really want to go retro with early 3D graphics, more blocker textures, and hey, go with the N64. Or hey, you know, if you feel like going with the GameCube, then go with the GameCube. It's all about what you prefer. Although I wouldn't get into GameCube games at the moment because they are horribly expensive. But I'd say both consoles are great. It just honestly depends on what games you're into. Either way, like, subscribe, do whatever you want to do, no rush, and tell me down below what do you prefer, the N64 or the GameCube? Let me know down in the comments, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.